morning, everyone. This is the City of Frankfort Board of Commissioners special meeting. Today is Thursday, December 21st, 9 a.m. I ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Unger?
Present.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Present.
Commissioner May?
Present.
Mayor Wilkerson?
Present. We do have a quorum, and we'll start with action item number 2. I'll turn it over to City Hall.
Item number 2, we have Sherry Becker, formerly of MCPA Advisor LLP, will present for fiscal year 2023 audit for acceptance by the Board of Commissioners.
You all hear me all right?
We can.
Good. Okay, great. So thank you all for allowing us to come to this special call meeting today to present your 2023 audit report. I believe you all have a PDF of that report, and I will go through it. Would you like me to share it? If you give me access, I can share it on the screen or just call the page numbers out. What's your preference, Mayor?
Does Leanne have access to share?
No.
Can we give her I think the preference would be just to call it out on the screen.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. I'm going to turn you over to page number 1. This is the page with our letterhead on it, and get right down to the very first most important thing. At the top of the page there is the opinion that we are issuing this year. Once again, this year we are issuing an unmodified or a clean opinion on these financial statements. That means that these financial statements are materially correct. And they're reliable for your decision-making purposes. So this first page goes on to discuss management's responsibility and ownership of these financial statements. And it also discusses our responsibility. And something it talks about is that the level of assurance that we are giving you on these financial statements is what we call reasonable assurance. It is a high level of assurance, but it is not an absolute level of assurance. And part of the reason that it's not an absolute level of assurance is because we do not look at 100% of the transactions of the city. We test representative samples of the various transactions in which you all engage throughout the year. I'm going to turn you over now to page 2, which discusses at the bottom of the page your required supplementary information. There is certain required supplementary information that the Government Accounting Standards Board requires to be in these financial statements. That includes the management's discussion and analysis, as well as the schedules that are associated with your participation in the county employees retirement system for both the pension and the insurance funds. So we do not audit those schedules. We do review them to make sure that they are consistent with our inquiries and our observations and with the financial statements themselves, and we found them to be so. And then on page 3, it talks about your supplementary information that is included. This is all listed in the table of contents, but one of the largest pieces of supplementary information that you have is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is associated with your management and expenditure of federal grants. We do issue an opinion on supplementary information, and we are issuing an unmodified or a clean opinion on that information as well. Starting on page 4 is your management's discussion and analysis. And I am not going to go over that in any, significant detail. It is a nice introduction to the financial statements in some really understandable terms. Alicia spends time reviewing this and kind of telling you the why of how the city's net position changed. So I would encourage you to read those sections, but we'll look over the financial statements in just a little bit more detail than what's in that. So if you all will turn with me to page number 9, the statement of net position. Pages 9 and 10 are your government-wide statements. These statements are your full accrual basis financial statements. They carry the city's fixed assets as well as your long-term debt. Something that is new in these schedules this year, or in these statements this year, are two new liabilities that you all were required to book by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. If you look maybe 2/3 of the way down the page, you will see lease liabilities and subscription liabilities. So those have to do, the lease liability has to do with your enterprise lease in which you all engaged, and we've booked your liability over the term of that lease. The subscription liabilities, I'll give a shout to Alicia here, and also to, I think his name is Judd in IT. They spent a lot of time tracking down all of the different information technology subscription-based arrangements that the city has engaged in. We worked with them to assess whether or not those were part of the standard, and then actually booking of the liability and the right of use asset that is associated with that. So I would like to focus our time today. I know you all are busy, so I'm going to focus on page number 11 and really look at the general fund. This is the balance sheet for your governmental funds, and this is more in line with what you see Alicia reporting to you all on a monthly basis. In a lot of respects, this balance sheet is very comparable to last year's if you were looking at it. Your cash and cash equivalents are down about $3.8 million this year, and that is due to you all having expended your state and local fiscal recovery fund dollars that were still sitting in your bank account as of June 30th, 2022. All of your other assets are comparable to prior year. When we look down at your liabilities, your unearned revenue has also decreased about $3.7 million. And again, that is in line with the spending of those unearned, or of those ARPA monies. With your fund balance this year, your fund balance in your general fund did increase about $283,000 over the prior year. We've displayed there the components of your fund balance, and just as those who are charged with governance, I think this is an important thing for you all. Your non-spendable fund balance of $112,000 is just made up of your prepaid assets. So that's money that you have already spent that is sitting there waiting to be amortized over the course of the year. You have assigned funds of $4.2 million. Those are assigned for your compensated absences as well as for encumbrances that the city has incurred at June 30th. You have about $4.7 million of restricted fund balance. That is fund balance where a third party, it might be your creditors for your unspent proceeds of any kind of debt, grantors have placed restrictions on those funds. So that's what that money is. Someone outside of the government tells you how to spend it. And then you have something new this year, and that is your committed fund balance of $10.5 million. What that is, you all remember that you all passed a minimum fund balance policy this year, that you would maintain a minimum fund balance somewhat equivalent to about 3 months of expenditures. So we have pulled that out based on Alicia's recommendation and shown that as committed fund balance, just to show that that's not really available for spending. And so that leaves you with unassigned funds of about $7.2 million. You all have any questions on the balance sheet before I move on to page number 13? Okay. If not, when we look at page number 13, your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, again, a lot of this is comparable to prior year. I'm sure Alicia's been happy all year long to show you all that occupational tax receipts have increased about $2.6 million. Overall, your revenue's up about $3.8 million from the prior year, so that's very good. Your expenditures, those two are up about $3 million. That's kind of across the board if you just looked at all the different areas there. But the biggest piece is in your public safety, which is up about $1.8 million. That's due to the salary study that you all had conducted this year, as well as there were times during the year where you had some extra positions that were being filled just for some succession planning. Do you all have any questions on that before I move on? Okay, if not, I'll turn you to page number 15. This is the statement of net position for your proprietary funds or for your sewer funds. Your cash and cash equivalents at year end are up about $3.9 million. What that is related to is you all converted some of your investments over to pay for capital projects, and at year end, there was about 3.9 that had not been fully expended yet on those projects. And as you would expect, your investments are down about $8.2 million, again, related to those capital projects. Everything else, your other assets, your liabilities are really comparable to prior year, nothing out of line. And your net position this year is up about $1.8 million. Do y'all have any questions on that before I go to page 16? Okay, so again, everything here is pretty comparable to prior year. Your operating revenues are up $620,000. Your operating expenses are up about $479,000. So nothing out of line going on in your sewer fund. Okay, and I will point you out just one thing on page number 17, which is your statement of cash flows, and that is the cash flow from operating activities. So the operating activities of the entity provided $6.6 million. Sorry, this is very light. About $6.1 million in cash to the organization throughout the year. We have other components of the cash increase or decrease, which all brings you down to that net change in your cash and cash equivalents of $3.9 million that I discussed earlier. Do y'all have any questions before I move you on over to the fiduciary funds on page number 19?
Can you give us an example of a cash flow from operating activity?
Sure. That's exactly what it sounds like. So when you all have fees that are collected for providing sewer services, those fees are netted against the operating expenses. So operating expenses would be things like salaries, benefits, whatever, equipment.
Okay, this is we're still talking just sewer on this, okay?
Yes, exactly, just sewer. So just to back up, that sewer fund is shown on a full accrual basis of accounting, more like what you would expect to see in a for-profit entity. All right. When we move on to page 19, your statement of fiduciary activities, I won't belabor this. Just want to point out to you all that your pension trust fund for the closed police and firefighters plan did have about $3 million of assets at year end. So it is somewhat overfunded still. That's a good thing. All right, I am going to move on to the notes. I know you all have been through this presentation before, so out of respect for your time, I'm only going to hit notes that have changed or that I think are very important to those charged with governance. So if after today I have skipped over something that you all want more information about, please feel free to contact me or Debbie Smith, who is on this call today. She's the engagement partner on this job. So I'm going to pull you over to page number 25, item number 13, this fund balance and designations, about the second paragraph or so there. I just wanted to point out to you all there that we have tweaked this paragraph to discuss your all's minimum fund balance requirements and the fact that you all did enact that policy this year. Okay. And I'm going to take you back to page number 27. Note letter D on your deposits. One of the things that we do is we look at your cash on deposit in financial institutions, and we test that to ensure that it is fully covered by a combination of FDIC insurance and collateral that is pledged for your all's deposits. And I'm happy to tell you that you all are fully covered by both that combination of securities that are pledged and the FDIC insurance. And then on page number 28, this investment note at the bottom of the page has really been modified a bit just to discuss some of the policy changes that you all made this year to mitigate your concentration of credit risk. So that's a note that Alicia has worked on quite a bit. Alicia, do you have anything you want to say about that before I move on?
No, can everyone hear me? Sorry, I was having trouble with my volume earlier. That's if you asked me anything at the very beginning. My apologies, I didn't hear it. So
No, you're fine.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take you back to page number 33. This is just a note that I think is important. Your long-term debt note, note G. This displays all the components of your debt that you had at June 30th. It shows what your reductions or what your payments on that debt were versus any new draws. The following pages on page number 34 through 35 discuss the different pieces of debt that you have. And on page number 35, you will see a schedule of what the payments are going to be over the life of that debt. So you can see what the cash draws will be to service that debt over the life of all the different pieces. Okay. I know that everybody likes the pension and OPEB notes, but I'm going to skip over the pension note and take you directly to note number K or letter K. Just to point out to you that note K is a new note this year that is required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board to discuss your obligations under the enterprise lease. And on the following page, number 45, again, this is a new note this year, note L, subscription-based information technology arrangements I referred to earlier. It just describes all the different arrangements that you all have that fall within the scope of that standard and what the obligations are. And then I'm going to take you back to page number 51. I know I'm skipping over a lot, but those are things that are largely unchanged. Want to point out to you all note S, the subsequent events note. This is something new, and I think it's something very important. This note just gives a brief explanation that on November the 14th that you all did issue that those general obligation bonds in the amount of $5.1 million. There's just a little bit of detail about the interest rates that the bonds are yielding and when the payments are due semi-annually. Do you all have any questions on those notes before I take you back to 58? Is there anything that you would like me to address that I did not? Okay, if not, I'm going to take you back to page 58. This is the schedule, your comparison of your budget to actual for the year. And I've gotten you past the detail to bring you down to total revenues there. That's maybe a quarter of the way down that page. So you all came in at June 30th, $1.2 million ahead of what your budgeted revenues were. That's largely attributable to the occupational taxes coming back strong. And then at the bottom of that page, your expenses were under budget, $1.4 million. So, if you look at the year compared to the budget, it was a very good year, outperforming the budget. Any questions on that before I take you back to the last couple of pages? Okay. We're going to go back to page 68. This is your yellow book letter, we call it, your report on your independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting. We review your internal control not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the operating effectiveness, but we review internal control to help us determine where these financial statements might be at risk of being materially misstated. And then that's where we really focus our audit time is in those areas where there is risk. So I'm happy to tell you we did not identify any material weaknesses or any significant deficiencies in internal controls this year. Neither did we identify any non-compliances with statutes, regulations, grant, or contracts agreements. And then on page 70, this particular report is your uniform guidance report or your single audit report. So we assess all of the different programs that the city administers under federal awards, and we use a risk-based approach to determine which program we're going to test as a major program. So we tested the state and local fiscal recovery fund again this year as your major program. I'm happy to tell you that we did not find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls over your compliance, nor did we identify any issues of non-compliance with the terms of that state and local fiscal recovery fund grant. Then back on page 72, this is just your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. It is the detail of all the grants that the city expended. You did expend nearly $9 million in federal awards under a number of different grants this year. Do you all have any questions for me? That's the end of my prepared remarks. Debbie, do you have anything you would want to add?
No, that was excellent. Just if you all have questions, we'd be happy to take those.
Any questions? So it sounds like last year, revenue's better than expected, expenses better than expected. And the difference
That's
just
it.
went into the difference went into the uncommitted funds,
Exactly.
which is over 7 million, but we do have some of those, I guess, committed internally, do we not, Alicia?
Mayor, do you mind if I make a quick statement?
No,
I just
go
want
ahead.
to thank the auditors. They've been such a big help to me. Did a lot of hard work. The city's got a lot of different things going on right now, and it's going to be a lot more with the 2 TIF districts and the new bond, and we're probably getting additional bonds, and we're going to have more restricted revenues. So I just want to thank Leanne and Debbie and Landon, who's not on the line. He was the auditor that came in and worked here a lot when they were on site, but they were all very good to bounce ideas off of and, help me walk through things. It's like I said, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to what's going on with the city. So I just want to thank them for their professionalism and their, willingness to help me and walk through things with me. Thank you.
Alicia.
Anything else? Any questions, discussion on the audit? If not, thank you, Leanne and Debbie. Happy holidays. And we'll move on to action item number 2.
Happy holidays.
An ordinance of the city of Frankfort, Kentucky. Am I on? Yes. Okay. An ordinance of the city of Frankfort, Kentucky, amending ordinance number 7-2022, which established a local development area for economic development purposes within the city of Frankfort, Kentucky, known as the Paddocks of Frankfort Local Development Area, in order to amend the development agreement and the local development area agreement, and authorizing the mayor to consent to the assignment of the development agreement, further authorizing the mayor and other officials to take such appropriate actions as are necessary or required in connection with the amendment of the development agreement, the amendment of the local development area agreement, and the assignment of the development agreement. This ordinance A authorizes the mayor to execute the First Amendment to the local development area agreement for the Paddocks of Frankfort local development area established for economic development purposes within the city of Frankfort. B authorizes the mayor to execute the amended and restated development agreement. C authorizes the mayor to execute the assignment and assumption of the amended and restated development agreement and authorizes city staff to release that executed assignment and assumption of the amended and restated development agreement upon confirmation that all conditions of closing on the transfer of the property from original developer to new developer have been met, and further authorizes the mayor and other officials to take appropriate action connected with the local development area.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve in a second. Any discussion, questions on this second reading?
Nope, super excited, ready to move forward, and glad everyone could join us today for a special meeting so we can continue this forward. So,
I'll ask the clerk to call for a vote.
Commissioner Unger,
Yes.
Commissioner Waldridge,
yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Mayor Wilkerson.
Yes, motion adopted.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Happy New Year, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yes.